honourable member for Timmins, James Bay. Order.
Mr. Speaker, the ultimatum over the Kinder Morgan pipeline will not be solved by jumping to the deadline of a Texas oil company, because the issue of social license for Indigenous Canadians remains unresolved. And yet, if you look at the minister's own briefing notes, the government admits that their response to the legitimate Indigenous questions are, quote, paternalistic, unrealistic, and inadequate. Ooh. That's colonialism 101. Did the Prime Minister really think he was going to stop the Kinder Morgan impasse by deliberately excluding Indigenous leadership from Alberta and British Columbia from the talks?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, as the honourable member knows, major projects such as this are by their very nature controversial, and they divide communities. I mean, there are many people in British Columbia who think this is a very important project for Canada. As a matter of fact, it even divides political parties. Perhaps the member would want to organize a meeting with the NDP premiers of Alberta and British Columbia and see what kind of consensus he can arrange.
For Timmins, James Bay.
Refer him to his notes about being paternalistic and inadequate, because I'm very pleased that the Premier of British Columbia and Alberta are at the table. The question is why they're deliberately excluding Indigenous Canadians. Hear, hear. That's the question. They're asking Canadians to assume the financial risk for Kinder Morgan, but there's also a significant social risk. So I want to ask my friend, just how far are they willing to go to run roughshod over Indigenous rights to do the work of a Texas-based oil company? Answer that.
The Honourable Minister. The member for Lakeland. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Speaker, on April...
Sorry. Pardon me. I got the minister. The Honourable Order. I need a whistle, I think. The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. Order.
Time to my honourable friend. But before I do, the member knows that the Government of Canada has engaged in unprecedented consultation with Indigenous communities up and down the line. We know that 44 Indigenous communities have signed benefit agreements with Kinder Morgan, 33 of them in British Columbia. Others have been involved with us in establishing a monitoring committee, co-developed between the government and Indigenous communities for the first time in Canadian history.
The Honourable